Okay, let's unpack this. Today, we are diving deep into, well, a really fascinating stack of sources. They detail these fundamental principles for what they're calling authentic joy.
Mm.
This isn't just fluffy feel-good advice. It feels more like an architectural blueprint for navigating life.
Yeah, I see that. Built on four key pillars, right? Self-love, acceptance, perspective, and relationships.
Exactly. It provides this sort of guide for navigating both your internal world and, everything outside.
It's quite a remarkable body of work, I think, because it moves beyond just general philosophy and gives us really specific, actionable guidelines.
Right.
They feel like genuine mindset shifts, designed to function, like you said, as that guide.
Absolutely. So our mission today is to try and distill all that complexity into, say, 5 core principles.
Mm.
We're kind of aiming for the shortcut here, understanding how this intentional living really fuels sustained happiness.
Yeah, like getting the core toolkit.
Exactly. This deep dive should hopefully arm you, the listener, with the mental tools you need for, well, real-time application. So let's start where all this self-improvement stuff really has to begin, with radical self-reliance. So the sources, they make this demand almost. It feels non-negotiable. Happiness must be internally generated.
Yes.
We're warned very clearly against, waiting around for external validation
Mm.
or permission to feel worthy or good.
That's the absolute core instruction here. You have to be your own source of positive energy. The text explicitly flips that common script. Instead of finding love, it's about actively generating love.
Generating it.
Yeah, and what's fascinating is the mechanism. It's not passive hope, it's presented as an active choice. You have to treat yourself like your primary client, almost.
Okay, but practically speaking,
Yeah.
how do you keep that up, that internal generation? I mean, most people, they rely on external feedback, right? Success at work, what your partner thinks. That's how they measure their worth.
And that measurement is precisely what these sources reject. They state pretty clearly that you are no less valuable than anyone else, because your value is inherent. It just is.
Ah, okay.
Therefore, there's simply no need to compete. Competition, in this view, it's based on a false idea that your value is comparative. And that's just exhausting
Right.
and unsustainable.
Right. It's a game you can't really win. So if my value is inherent and I'm being radically self-reliant, why does the material then immediately talk about the power of proximity?
Ah, yes.
That rule about surrounding yourself with the kind of people you want to be like and distancing yourself from those you don't. Isn't that relying on external support?
That's a really important tension to dig into. Self-reliance here isn't presented as isolation. It's more like insulation.
Insulation, okay.
You rely on yourself for your worth,
Right.
But you choose your company for your growth. The right proximity, it kind of insulates you from unnecessary negativity and helps optimize your potential. You're not depending on them for self-love, but maybe for like shared direction,
Oh,
momentum.
okay. That makes the distinction much clearer. And all this internal work, then the self-generation of love, refusing to compete, has to be done for just one person.
Exactly. Change yourself for you.
Hmm.
To become a better person on your own terms, not for anyone else.
Right.
And if we connect this to the ultimate goal stated in the framework, the good life is one where your internal foundation is just so solid that you rely on yourself as much as possible. You depend on others, sure, but for mutual enrichment, not for your basic survival or self-definition.
Okay, here's where, for me, it gets really interesting. Because radical self-reliance sounds like you're trying to be strong all the time. But these sources are incredibly honest about pain and failure. They actually instruct us on how to deal with the darkness.
Yeah, the path to this authentic joy they talk about, it definitely doesn't go through denial. It requires learning to accept mistakes and, crucially, forgiving yourself.
Forgiving yourself, that's hard.
It really is. But that internal conflict, the self-punishment we dish out, that's often more damaging than whatever the original error was.
And when suffering hits real suffering, the sources give us a process. It's almost like a mindfulness technique.
It is, very much so.
Acknowledge it, observe it, and then truly internalize that it's temporary. It will pass. That observation part seems key.
It's about creating distance, isn't it? Distance between the self and the pain.
Yeah.
Like you are the sky, the suffering is just the weather passing through.
I like that. The sky and the weather.
And speaking of radical honesty, I really like the burnout analogy they use.
Oh, yeah.
The sources basically give you permission to fail and reset. They say, look, it's okay to burn out. You don't have to stay lit constantly.
Wow, okay.
You can slowly gather fuel again and then reignite when you're ready. That's powerful permission, I think. permission to step back without that crushing weight of shame.
That recovery phase is so vital. And this leads to that really profound insight about loss and gain. There's this philosophical exchange described.
Yes, the idea that every gain comes with a price, but also that everything you lose will somehow give something back in return. It totally reframes losing.
It really does. How does that work, though? What's the return?
Well, we often think of loss as just, subtraction,
Yeah.
a zero-sum game. But the sources seem to define the return not in material terms, but more in, like, philosophical capital.
Philosophical capital. Okay.
So you lose the wrong relationship, maybe you gain mental clarity, emotional time back, you lose a bad job, perhaps you gain the chance to pursue something truly aligned with you.
I see.
The mechanism feels like a transference of energy and focus, like the universe restoring balance by forcing you to see what actually matters most when other things fall away.
That reframing, that's essential for the most memorable metaphor in this whole section, I think.
You mean the pit.
Yeah, when you're
Yeah.
stuck in that deep, dark pit, failure, loss, whatever you have to look up. Because the stars shine brightest on nights without light pollution.
It's such a powerful image. And a command, really. Shift perspective,
Mm.
especially in crisis. It suggests that maybe profound truths, clarity about our values, even the most compelling beauty, it's often obscured by the noise of normal successful life, the light pollution. Only when everything else is stripped away, when that pollution is gone, do we sometimes get the clearest view of reality.
So shifting our gaze like that, it requires a conscious management of attitude. And the sources suggest attitude isn't just a feeling, it's more like a tool, something that fundamentally reshapes reality.
Yeah, it functions as the ultimate problem scaler. That's how I read it.
Problem scaler.
The contrast they paint is dramatic. A good attitude will take problems that seem massive and somehow make them feel small, manageable, while a negative attitude, it inflates minor annoyances until they feel catastrophic.
So attitude determines the size of the mountain you think you're facing.
Exactly, and this connects directly to the danger of the self-fulfilling prophecy they warn about.
Right. The warning is, if you only look for misfortune, guess what? You'll only find misfortune.
Your brain is efficient. It's just confirming the bias you told it to look for.
It's a reminder, then, that pessimism is an active choice, and one that works against your own happiness.
Absolutely. And the only way to break that pattern, according to these sources, is by really seizing the present moment.
That's right. The critique of modern life here is fascinating, isn't it? We spend so much energy dwelling on yesterday's regrets or dreaming about tomorrow's perfect life that we completely miss the beauty, the opportunity of what's right here, right now.
Life is only available in the present. That's the core message. Everything else is memory or imagination.
And if we truly value this present moment, this incredibly valuable resource called time,
Then the practical application follows naturally.
don't waste it arguing with anyone.
Yeah. The opportunity cost of a petty argument, the time, the energy, the focus you lose, it's almost always higher than any satisfaction you might get from being right.
That's a wonderfully practical takeaway. Prioritize your most precious resource, time, over that fleeting ego boost of winning some trivial debate.
Well put.
Okay, so we've talked about the internal foundation, the self-love, the attitude needed to face the world. How does this framework guide our social relationships, the people around us?
Well, the sources define loyalty in a very specific way. Not by convenience or how often you see someone, but by crisis.
By crisis.
Yes. The measure of a true relationship, they say, is whoever is beside you on your absolute worst days. That's the person you should cherish. Love. They've passed the test of self-interest, essentially.
Wow. That's partnership in its purest form, isn't it?
It seems so. But then, this same framework contains probably the most challenging advice, maybe the most brutal. And it seems to fly right in the face of that loyalty idea. It's the instruction that sometimes you have to burn the bridge ahead of you to make absolutely sure you won't cross back again.
Burn the bridge. That sounds harsh. How do we square that with cherishing loyalty?
This is where that concept of self-reliance gets applied to boundaries. It's not about casually discarding people. It's portrayed as a decisive, permanent separation from predictable, cyclical pain.
Predictable, cyclical pain. Okay. But how do we know? How do we distinguish between necessary self-protection and just running away from a conflict that maybe needs working through? Does the source give us a clear criterion for when a bridge must be burned?
The criterion seems linked to the metaphor that comes right after it in the text.
Which is?
You can't hold on to something with sharp thorns and expect it not to hurt you.
Okay.
The sources argue that if a relationship consistently harms you, if the pain is repetitive, predictable, and especially if you keep going back to it, maybe out of habit or guilt or some misplaced loyalty, then the bridge has to be destroyed.
So burning the bridge becomes an act of self-love when the alternative is just perpetual suffering from a source you already know is harmful.
Exactly that. It's framed as an acknowledgement that the ongoing pain, the constant tearing from those thorns, is ultimately worse than the sharp, decisive pain of separation.
Right.
The bridge is burned for the future you, ensuring that the self-reliant person doesn't keep compromising their own hard-won joy.
So pulling all these principles together now, the self-love, accepting failure, the positive attitude, those intentional, sometimes tough relationship choices. We land on this core concept. True happiness is found in the path itself. It's not the destination.
Right. And achieving that, living that, requires what they call radical individual sovereignty.
Meaning
Meaning we cannot judge or dictate someone else's path. We can't think for their life. We have to grant others the exact same internal autonomy that we're claiming for ourselves.
that's huge. And it brings us back to that final test of meaning, doesn't it?
Which one?
If something makes you genuinely happy, and importantly, it doesn't harm anyone else,
Yeah.
the source material basically says, keep doing it without hesitation, even if the entire world looks at it and thinks it's completely meaningless.
Because meaning is defined by the individual. The only metric that truly matters in this framework is authentic joy. And that confirms the ultimate definition they seem to arrive at. Happiness isn't some future point you reach, like a finish line. It's the state of being, the attitude you hold toward every single step you take in life.
It is the moment-to-moment experience, filtered through that self-loving, forgiving, and intentionally optimistic lens we've been talking about.
That's the authentic road, as
Yeah.
they frame it.
Yeah, that really resonates. Hashtag, tag, tag, outro. Okay, we have completed our deep dive for today. And the distilled message feels pretty profound, actually. Authentic joy isn't accidental. It's not luck.
No, it's built.
It's built on a foundation of, well, radical self-love, active forgiveness for your own flaws, deliberately cultivating a powerful, positive attitude, and making those difficult, sometimes really hard, intentional choices to protect your relationships and your boundaries.
The entire framework really rests on that principle that you, the individual, are your own primary source.
Yeah.
Your strength, your fulfillment. It starts there.
It does, but that leaves us with a final, maybe provocative thought, something that ties together that tension we talked about earlier. If the journey is where happiness resides, and relying on oneself is the core principle, how do we make sure that in our necessary pursuit of self-reliance, in the act of burning those destructive bridges, how do we ensure we don't accidentally incinerate the few truly vital connections? The ones held by those people who genuinely did stand by us on our worst days. The ones the sources tell us to cherish.
That's the critical balancing act, isn't it?
Yeah.
The self-reliant person must also possess the wisdom somehow to distinguish between the necessary cut and the vital support.
Yeah.
And that requires constant, honest self-assessment. There's no easy formula for that one.
No, I guess not. Definitely something to think about as you, the listener, decide which bridges in your life need keeping and maybe which ones might need setting alight. Until next time.